through that, I thought I knew. I thought I had an awareness to...
Showing the Sussexes have ensured their kids are known as Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. Well, Meghan's worried for Tom Bower joined.
Harry was never supposed to be doubted as a dad. Being a father was meant to fix his image. But Tom Bower just turns that whole story upside down. Fairytale could fall apart in one single breath.
Californian kids to be prince and princess. It's not a joke.
But it's king and queen of hypocrisy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, they are the arch hypocrites.
For years, Prince Harry used fatherhood as his shield. When people mocked him as weak or spoiled, he pointed to Archie. When the press roasted Meghan for fighting with the palace, he showed off Lilibet as proof of their fresh start in California. Being a dad wasn't just personal, it became part of the Sussex brand. But now, Bower's words hit the one detail they've guarded more than anything, the question of whether those kids are even theirs by blood. And that twist, the so-called truth tellers hiding the biggest truth of all, is why the world can't stop watching. According to Bower, the odd details were always there in plain sight. Meghan's pregnancy announcements didn't quite add up. Her baby bumps looked different from event to event. Unlike William and Kate, who showed their babies on the hospital steps, Harry and Meghan skipped that and chose to staged photo op instead. Reports suggest birth records were hidden, carefully arranged, or even changed. On their own, these things could seem small, but together, Bower says they form a troubling picture, one pointing straight to whispers about surrogacy, secrecy, and real family ties. If he's right, it's not just about private life. It's about the royal bloodline, and that's why this story is blowing up so fast.
Then peddled Harry because he knew it was untrue. It was one of Meghan's many lies. And that is really what's so awful. And that's why Charles tried very hard yesterday to assert the importance of Commonwealth.
Fans can forgive Hollywood-style photo tricks. They can forgive Netflix deals or failed Spotify projects. But when the centuries-old royal bloodline is in doubt, that's different. Suddenly, random online chat boards turned into front-page news. Commentators on GB News asked straight out, why won't the Sussexes take a DNA test? Even insiders quoted in the Daily Mail said silence only makes it worse. The irony is harsh. The couple who built their image on honesty now look guilty because they refuse to talk. Harry's personal response, according to reports, has been falling apart. Insiders say he paces around Montecito, yells at staff, and scrolls endlessly through the coverage. The man once known as the therapy prince is now mocked online as unable to handle his own truth. Meghan's reaction is the opposite, cold and planned, with legal threats supposedly prepared for outlets repeating Bower's claims. To critics, it looks like strategy. To fans, it looks like hiding. And both views add more fuel to the fire, because each day they stay silent, the same question hangs over them. If nothing is being hidden, why hide it all? And this is where the contradiction burns the brightest.
It made quite clear that Harry is not welcome. But everything about Charles is so indecisive. He can't even at the moment decide whether he should wear a uniform or not on the car of the National
Harry and Meghan said they left the palace to escape secrets, but now Tom Bower claims their survival depends on keeping the biggest secret of all. The clash is brutal, and this is only the start. When Tom Bower speaks, his words don't stay in private. They spread across the media like an explosion. Within hours of his claims, whispers once left for small blogs blew up into primetime TV and front-page headlines. Suddenly, what many dismissed as wild gossip was treated like a constitutional problem. And that shift from rumor to serious news is where the Sussex nightmare truly starts. Fans reacted first. On TikTok, the hashtag #ShowTheProof hit more than 1 million views in just one day. Old clips of Meghan's changing baby bump returned stitched with creators asking, why did palace births look so different? Reddit threads titled DNA or Bust shot to the top of royal watching forums, and memes came fast.
He's everybody, and he poses as a confrontationist, and it doesn't work. So he should have, vis-a-vis the Sussexes, cancelled the titles, and he should make absolutely clear there is not.
One viral meme showed William and Kate smiling outside the hospital next to Meghan and Harry's staged photo call, with the caption, "Transparency versus secrecy." It was mean, but powerful, because once the internet turns a scandal into a meme, it never really dies. Then the commentators joined in. Piers Morgan called it the one question Meghan can't sue away. GB News said this was a constitutional problem, not just a private one. Even usually cautious outlets like The Times pointed out how different the Sussex baby announcements looked compared to past royal births. Every new layer of coverage gave the claims more air, and with each headline, the pressure grew on Harry and Meghan to answer or risk being defined by their silence. Behind the scenes, insiders said the couple was divided. Sources close to Montecito's staff told the Daily Mail that Harry wanted to speak out publicly to fight back with fire. Meghan, they said, wanted the legal route, warning that any statement would only spark louder calls for DNA proof. That split made them look less like a united team and more like a marriage under stress. To critics, it confirmed what they had long guessed: Harry falling apart emotionally, Meghan pulling strings strategically. And while the Sussexes waited, institutions began weighing in. Royal insiders told The Telegraph that the palace saw the scandal as toxic but manageable as long as they stayed quiet. But silence had two sides. If the palace stayed distant, critics argued, wasn't that proof the doubts might be true? Even members of parliament began whispering about constitutional clarity. As one political commentator said, if there's doubt about bloodlines, there's doubt about succession. That's not gossip, that's government.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because this Commonwealth Day actually was important because of all of the damage that Netflix series did.
Drama kept growing. What first sounded like small whispers about a celebrity couple's kids had turned into big questions about the monarchy itself. Fans made jokes, critics gave their takes, officials stayed careful, and right in the middle, Harry and Meghan said nothing. But in scandals, silence does not stop the story. It makes it move faster. Each day they stayed quiet. The question got louder. Would the Sussexes stand up for their family or let Tom Bower's words shape their story? The more people dug into what Bower claimed, the darker it looked. Reports say the first red flag didn't start on social media. It was noticed inside the palace. Insiders say staff were uneasy about how Meghan's pregnancy was handled compared to Kate's. There was no usual hospital reveal, no public records done in the normal way. Instead, Harry and Meghan chose secrecy, vague statements, little access, and staged photos. To the public, it looked fresh and modern. To palace workers, it looked like they were hiding something. Then came the strange pictures. People noticed Meghan's baby bump changing in odd ways. In one photo, it looked smaller than days before. In another, it looked way bigger, sparking talk about fake padding. Tabloids hinted at it, but they always softened the words. Now, Bower says it openly. He claims these were not tricks of clothing or lighting. He says they were on purpose, made to look like pregnancy while covering up a different truth. And when those photos are shown side by side, critics say the timeline makes no sense. Birth records made things worse. Reports suggest missing details, hidden files, and unexplained edits. Journalists who checked the archives noticed William and Kate's kids had full paperwork and clear hospital moments, but Archie and Lilibet did not. One family showed openness, the other showed silence. For Bower, these details are not random, they are proof, and when added to Meghan's carefully chosen photos, always on her terms, always selective, the pattern looks far more troubling than chance. But his biggest claim goes further than pictures. Bower points straight to the crown, to bloodlines and real heirs. If surrogates were used, why cover it up? If donors were part of it, what would that mean for who inherits the throne? For a monarchy built on blood, these are not small questions. They hit at the very base of the system. Fans may think it is just gossip, but institutions cannot ignore it. As one legal expert told Sky News, if people even think the lineage is unclear, lawyers will demand answers. It cannot be avoided. The personal price for Harry is crushing. Insiders told The Sun he is fragile, paranoid, and obsessive. He reportedly stays up late, scrolling coverage, snapping at staff, pacing the halls, eaten up by the idea that his fatherhood, his very self, is under attack. For Meghan, It is about strategy. Lawyers have drafted threats, but critics warn suing could drag evidence into court. One wrong move could turn whispers into sworn testimony. That risk makes their silence look less like strength and more like guilt. At this point, Bowers' claims don't just raise questions. They change the Sussex story. From a fairy tale escape to California into a possible lie so deep, it threatens not just their image, but the monarchy itself. And history shows, once bloodline doubts begin, they never fade away. By the time Bowers' words hit the world press, the scandal had gone too far to stop. What started as whispers about Meghan's bump and Harry's fatherhood had grown into a storm over the throne. And the worst part wasn't what people said. It was what went unanswered. Each silence from Montecito added more fuel to the fire. Fans were first to push harder. Outside Buckingham Palace, protesters showed signs saying DNA or done. On TikTok, creators stitched Harry's mental health talks with Bowers' claims, asking how a man who preaches honesty could hide such a basic truth. On Twitter, #RoyalDeception trended next to clips of Meghan talking about honesty in the Oprah interview. The contrast was brutal. The couple who accused the palace of lies now stood accused of telling the biggest one themselves. Then the industry stepped in. A former Netflix boss told Variety the company was worried about being tied to a brand falling apart. If the Sussex family fairy tale turned toxic, billions in deals could be at risk. Spotify had already dropped them. Could Netflix be next? Book publishers also whispered about the danger of linking to a story that might collapse over DNA questions. For Meghan, whose whole plan was to profit from the Sussex brand, this was the nightmare. Partners doubting not just her work, but her family story itself. Even the palace, usually silent, started shifting. Reporters said palace staff were making plans to step back if the scandal grew. One insider told The Telegraph the Windsor plan was, don't interfere, but don't embrace. It was a careful dance. Protect the crown, but leave Harry and Meghan alone. And for critics, that very distance looked like proof. If the palace wouldn't defend the Sussex children, did that mean the whispers had truth? The fallout spread outside Britain. American commentators compared Meghan to Elizabeth Holmes, who built an empire on lies under close investigation. Others compared Harry to Britney Spears in his darkest times, a man falling apart under his own contradictions. The Sussexes, once the shiny alternative to the monarchy, now risked becoming worldwide cautionary tales. And this is where the biggest tension shows: Meghan's control versus Harry's collapse. Reports say Harry begged to speak out, to deny the claims and defend his fatherhood. Meghan, described as cold and calculating, shut it down. That picture, a broken prince silenced by a strategic wife, was tabloid gold. For critics, it proved their worst ideas: Harry the puppet, Meghan the puppeteer. And scandals do not reward fairness. The Sussexes had built their empire on a fairy tale, but at this point, it looked less like freedom and more like a setup. And the question was no longer just for fans or gossip sites, it was for history. The results of Bowers' claims are not only about news, they are about legacy. For Harry, it cuts to his very core. His redemption was built on fatherhood. Whenever he was attacked, whenever Meghan was criticized, Harry pointed to Archie and Lilibet as his purpose. Now, critics say that shield is broken. Reports claim Harry is paranoid, full of doubt and haunted by the cruel irony of being questioned as a dad after calling himself the therapy prince. To the world, he looks less like Diana's brave son and more like a man lost in secrets. For Meghan, it looks different. She is not shown as broken, but as cold and tactical. Insiders say lawyers are drafting threats to outlets repeating Bowers' words. But here's the catch. If she sues, the court could demand DNA tests, files, and testimony, the very things she wants to keep hidden. If she stays quiet, suspicion grows. Her image as the truth teller against the palace is now being torn apart by her refusal to share the truth herself. Critics say she looks less like the woman fighting lies and more like the one creating them. The monarchy hasn't escaped either. By refusing to defend Harry and Meghan's kids, the palace has fed rumors. Experts argue the crown is protecting itself from heirs who might be challenged one day. If true, it shows the palace would rather cut off Harry's family than risk the throne. That leads to the darkest question of all. Will Archie and Lilibet be remembered as royal heirs or as symbols of scandal? In the end, Tom Bower's claim didn't just spark gossip. It tore apart the one story Harry and Meghan couldn't afford to lose, the story of their family. Without that fairy tale, their Netflix deals, books, and speeches look shaky. Without that fairy tale, they risk being remembered not as rebels who broke free, but as celebrities who built an illusion and watched it collapse. And that may be the real ending, because scandals pass, but questions about bloodline never disappear. Which leaves one cruel irony. Harry and Meghan left the palace to escape secrecy, but now it is secrecy that may ruin them. If Tom Bower can shake the monarchy with one claim, imagine what happens if proof ever comes out.